Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Digital Toolbox Podcast. My name is Emmanuel Tejada. I own a marketing agency for home service providers. And today we have a special guest. We have Travis Abaire. He's
Hey,
a plumber in Connecticut. This guy is amazing at what he does. He's going to give us a bunch of tips. He's going to give us a bunch of advice, tell us his life story, and it's going to be awesome. So Travis, man, go ahead and introduce yourself.
so I'm Travis Abaire. My company is Tap Plumbing and Heating. Everyone sees the initials TAP and they're like, "Oh, what does that stand for?" Travis Abaire Plumbing. It'd be kind of redundant because it's Travis Abaire Plumbing and Heating. It actually doesn't mean anything. It just stands for like a tap, a water tap. So
Water tap. Hey, I actually just noticed that it spells the same thing. So tap, plumbing and heating. I like that.
yep.
So Travis, man, how did you get into plumbing? How did you actually before we even get into that? Who was Travis Abaire in high school?
Abaire.
Abaire.
I was high school. Well, I was the typical what you would see in the '90s skateboard kid. I was always skating. Had a mushroom haircut when I had hair. Was into punk rock and all that stuff.
Ooh.
That was me in high school. Had
So you
very few
wanted to be
friends.
Tony Hawk
I had like 4 or 5 friends at best.
at best. So you wanted to be Tony Hawk in the 90s.
Yeah, of course.
That's awesome. I actually used to skate a little bit too, but I never learned any tricks. I never learned how to ollie. But how far did you get into skating? Like, did you try to pursue it as a career at one point?
Oh no, I was never that good. I just had fun doing it. I still skate with my kids now and then. I have my own board still, but I was never that good. I didn't have a lot of friends who would skate. Um, so I was whatever tricks I knew. It's from just watching videos and trying them out myself. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s. I moved in. I had a roommate who he was awesome at skating, and he's the one that actually helped me improve through my 20s in skating, and that's when I actually got better. But but yeah, no, I never pursued it as a career because I knew I'd never be that good. I just never had a desire. I was just having fun.
Hey, just having fun. That's what life is about. And what about in college, Travis? Is that when you kind of got into plumbing? Was it in after college, or did you do a couple things before you got into plumbing?
I never went to college. I hated high school. I hated school in general. So I knew college was not for me. Um, So, right out of high school, my grandfather actually owned his own painting and wallpaper hanging company. So I went to work for him actually right out of high school. I went to trade school. Took HVAC, but my grandfather really needed help, so I went and worked with him for like 5 years, just doing that. And then he wanted to retire and give me his company, and I told him no, I wasn't interested. I didn't want to do it. So then after that, that's when I decided I want to get back into a licensed trade.
Ooh, okay, cool. So you mentioned you initially started going after your HVAC
Yeah.
certification. And then you ended up doing plumbing. So what intrigued you to go into HVAC at first?
Um, I went into HVAC because it seemed more interesting than the other trades that were offered at the time. Plumbing wasn't offered at the trade school I went to. It's either HVAC, wasn't even electrical, it was electronics, it was automotive, and it was culinary arts. I think those are the options. Oh,
Mm,
and welding. Welding was another one. So I went after HVAC, and that got me out of traditional high school because I hated it that much. It bored me to tears. So so halfway through, I made the transition over to trade school, and that's how I started doing HVAC.
gotcha. And let me ask you right off the bat, Travis, is HVAC or is plumbing the harder trade?
Um, I would say as far as technic technicalities, I'm gonna say HVAC
Hmm.
because there's a lot with controls. There's a lot with different refrigerants, what refrigerants to use and what system, um, how much to use, the weights, you know, there's a lot to HVAC. as far as the very technical end of things. So you have to have that kind of knowledge. So I would say HVAC is probably technically more difficult.
Than plumbing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then
Yep.
you also did painting and dry wallpaper.
Wallpaper.
So what I mean, would you say that HVAC is the most difficult trade overall out of all the trades?
That's kind of a tough one to say. It's all perspective. Are you doing residential? Are you doing big commercial stuff? Are you doing union work? Um, if you're talking technicalities, absolutely. Between that and I think electrical, those are probably the two most. But I would say HVAC probably more so because it incorporates electrical on top of it. So there's a lot more you need to know.
Mm.
So I think that's why I would lean probably more towards HVAC as being technically more difficult.
Technically more difficult. Love it, love it, love it. Cool. And then, so tell us, Travis. I mean, so you went from helping your grandfather with his painting and wallpaper company, then you started pursuing HVAC. Did you ever complete HVAC, or did you migrate halfway?
So I wanted to get back into HVAC, but no one was hiring apprentices at the time in the HVAC field. But I did find a plumber who was hiring an apprentice. So that's how I got into plumbing. So instead of going to HVAC route, I went the plumbing route.
Gotcha. And then in order to get that apprenticeship, because you were mostly focused on HVAC, did you have to go and learn new things in order to take that apprenticeship?
Yeah, so I had to go back to school. So I did some night courses while I was working for that other plumber, and excuse me. Then probably about a year after he hired me, he laid me off because he was running out of work. And then I joined the Plumbers Union here in Connecticut, and that's where I finished all my training. And they required everyone to do a 5-year apprenticeship because they wanted everyone to know both trades. They wanted them to know plumbing and they wanted to know HVAC. So I got training in both.
Oh wow, that was convenient that you got both. And then how did you transition from that apprenticeship? Did you remain in plumbing? What were the next steps for you at that point?
Yeah, so after I got into the union, I continued with my plumbing apprenticeship, and they just started this new program where they were giving credit for previous experience, where before they wouldn't. So because I went to school for HVAC for 2 years, and I went and I did a 1-year apprenticeship, non-union, and went to night school. They gave me a 1-year credit. So after that, I only had to do an additional 4 years of my apprenticeship with the union, and then I was able to get my license after that apprenticeship was over.
Ooh, so I'm sure that credit helped. I mean, well, did you need that credit actually? That or did it was it just
Yeah,
like a
otherwise, yeah,
freebie on
otherwise
top?
I would be doing a 6-year apprenticeship.
6 year. Oh
Otherwise, it would
man,
have
that
turned
would
into
have
six
been
years. So yeah, so instead it made it back to the 5 years that I
gotcha.
was
Okay,
supposed
that
to.
extra year would have been. Of course, you want it to be as short as possible. And how difficult was the whole process? Because like I live in New Jersey, right? I know I have a bunch of plumbers that I work with, and they always tell me, right, like it's very, very difficult to get your plumbing license here, right? It's you have to take a whole bunch of courses, like you said. You have to go to night school
Mhm.
after you've been working on plumbing all day, after the apprenticeship, after all these things. How difficult is it in Connecticut to get your license?
It's about the same. You have to stick to it, and you can't just be a loaf. You can't just sit there and just do the same thing. Uh, like a lot of the apprentices that were going through a time when I was going through my time, they were just there for a paycheck, and they weren't really doing anything to really advance themselves in the trade. They would just do the same thing. They're the ones you would use to get material. They were the ones you use to go get coffee orders.
Hmm.
So it's hard if it's something you really want to do and make your career. Then what you have to do is you have to show your employer that that's what you want. You have to ask the questions. You have to put in the initiative, because that's another thing. A lot of them, they weren't putting in the initiative. They were just I don't know what they were expecting, to be honest with you, but they weren't putting in the initiative. So they would get mad. They get mad at me when they see me running pipe as an apprentice and doing more than just getting hangers and drilling hangers and core drilling. They'd actually see pipe in my hands working and putting stuff together and learning. It's because you got to ask questions. You ask questions, You get all the apprentice work done and out of the way with, so that there's nothing else left to do but pipe, because they're not going to pay you just to stand there. So if you get all the apprentice work done that you're supposed to do, what else is left except, hey, teach me how to pipe?
I love that there too, because it shows the initiative, right? Like you're not
Yeah.
just doing the little baby stuff, and you can, like you said, there's people that do it. You can get away with doing the little baby stuff, little apprentice stuff. But if you actually want to take things to the next level, it's all about taking initiative. And I love what you said about just getting all the apprenticeship stuff done. So that what are you gonna do? Just sit around? No, you're gonna do the real stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what that's what I tell my apprentice. I say, hey, listen, you, you're an apprentice. You're going to go through your time. I have you because I need you to do the menial stuff that is a burden on me time wise. You're here to speed things up for me. And what speeds things up for me is for you to get my tools, get the material, get things I need, get everything organized while I'm doing stuff. Once that is done, what do you think I'm going to have you do? I'm not just going to have you sitting there, staring at your phone or playing video games. You're going to be. I'm going to show you how to throw a pipe up. I'm going to show you how to put fixtures together. And he's been working with me 2 years. He's a senior in high school, graduating this year, and I have zero problem having him trim out a bathroom, put it, set toilets, set all the fixtures. I have zero problem having him set fixtures. I've seen him do it enough times. He's seen me do it enough times where he's comfortable doing it, and I've watched him do it. He's slower than me, but that's to be expected. But every little thing that he does, no matter how long it takes him, is one less thing I have to do.
Yes.
So I don't expect him. I mean, I'm 26 years into this thing. I'm not expecting him to be as fast as me by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely. And this apprentice of yours, how difficult was it to find somebody like him? Like, because I
Oh,
know
dear
that most
Lord.
people don't want to go into the trades, and even if they
Yeah.
do, our generation, now people my age, their work ethic sucks. So how was that experience?
I was fortunate. His parents are actually good friends of mine. So they asked me, they say, hey, listen, he's going to school for plumbing. He wants to do plumbing. He likes it. Are you willing to put him on as an apprentice and teach him? So I said, absolutely. I said, but let's make one thing clear. We're friends. But if he sucks, I'm firing him. It's business after all. If he's not good, or he messes up too much or whatever it is, if he's just not cutting it, I'm firing him. So as long as we have that understanding, so no one's mad at the end of the day, I'm good. I'll put him on because I need someone. So they said, of course. I said, just do me a favor, call me first, so that way I can see if I can straighten him out. I said, deal. And he says, and if he doesn't straighten out after I talk to him, he goes, go ahead and fire him. I'm like, okay, sounds good to me.
Bro,
So
and I love that approach here too, because you not only are you preserving the relationship with your friend, right, in case that his performance is not up to par, but
yep.
you're also giving him the opportunity. So I like that. And how many, like I don't know how many what the exact number is, but how many apprentices can you have under your company? Or is there a limit, or are you allowed one? How does that work?
One apprentice per license holder.
Per license holder.
So right now I'm the only license holder, so I can only have one apprentice. If I was to hire another person who's licensed, then I can hire another one. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. That's it.
1-to-1 ratio. And I would imagine that's so that you don't have just, instead of hiring employees, you hire 20,
Well,
20
and,
people
and
under
that's
you.
what happened. That's exactly what happens. So when I was right out of high school, a friend of mine worked for an HVAC contractor who did all new construction, and he hired a ton of. All he had was apprentices on payroll. That's it, just apprentices, and he
Mm.
was the only person with a license. So you get guys like that who abused it, which is why I'm stuck with a 1-to-1 ratio. I mean, I could technically, if I had two apprentices, I'd be set, and it won't really divide my time because I could teach them both equally. You know what I mean? But I
At
can't
the
do
same
that
time,
here.
yeah.
I can't do that here. It's a 1-to-1 ratio.
And is that a law in Connecticut only, or is that throughout the whole U.S.? Do you know?
I don't really know. I know it's state to state.
Gotcha.
It's different state to state. I mean, some
State to
states
state.
allow for not just apprentices but helpers, which is different. They're not licensed apprentices. They're not looking to become plumbers, but they can be helpers, and they can help towards, do everything that an apprentice do here. They can run for pipe. They can hand you pipe. They carry your tools, drill your holes for you, stuff like that. But here, there's no allowance for a helper. If you're working with someone in a licensed trade, then you have to be a licensed apprentice or a registered apprentice with the state.
Interesting, interesting. And I wonder if that law will change, right? Because as we know, there's less people going into the trades than ever before. So I wonder if to speed things up, maybe they'll allow you to have more than one apprentice so that more than one person can learn at a time. Who knows?
I don't know. I have my doubts. But, like
Man,
with anything with government, money talks. So if it'll
money
bring in more
talks
revenue,
and bullshit
it'll bring
walks.
in
Yeah,
more revenue, they might.
they just might, if as long as it's to their benefit, right? So we'll see. We'll see where things go, especially with plumbers in the blue collar world. And man, so Travis, tell us a little bit more. So yes, you own Tap Plumbing. So right before you started your business, what were you doing? What did life look like for you?
Well, before I started Tap Plumbing, I worked for a friend of mine. I started and ran his plumbing division. And before that, I had another company, another plumbing and heating company that I started. That was my first company. And I was tired of chasing the money. So I closed it and went to work for my friend for a couple of years.
Ooh, oh, so you were a full-time entrepreneur before Tap Plumbing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And what year was that?
2013, I want to say.
2013.
No,
Got it. And I want to talk a little bit more.
2013, I think, or was 2013 the year I closed the doors? Hang on, I got to think. Yeah, no, I think I started in 2013.
2013. Gotcha.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think it was
cool. And I do
3
want to
years.
talk a little bit more also about when you work for your friend, but you mentioned that that first company, you closed it down. So what sparked you to kind of open it up again a couple years later and then start up Tap Plumbing and Heating?
Well, the company I worked for before Tap Plumbing and Heating um, was probably kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me to work for anybody else again. Um, I told my wife, I said, it doesn't matter. I'm not working for anybody else anymore because the only one who's going to
Mm,
appreciate what I bring to the table is me. No matter how hard and it was like that across the board. Even when I was in the union, it was the same thing. No matter how hard you work, it's never good enough. And that's what I found in every person I've ever worked for. No matter how much you give, they always want more. It's never good enough. So I'm like, I'm done. I don't care if I have to mow lawns. If plumbing doesn't work out and I have to mow someone's lawn and be a landscaper, I'll do that. As long as I'm working for myself. I'm not going to work for anybody again. It's just not worth it.
I
So,
respect that 1000%. And I have a couple of friends that say the exact same thing, and they're not even in the trades. They're not even in the trade. So I guess, and then you know what? Let's go into that then. So that company that you were working with right before Tap Plumbing and Heating, what was your role there, and what caused the ending of that for you to start Tap Plumbing? What was that like?
so I was the manager of the plumbing division. So basically, I ran the plumbing division. It was the plumbing division was run under my license. It was operated under my license. Um, so yeah, I would get the jobs. I would deal with customers. I would deal with the crew, the manpower for the plumbing end. Um, I was responsible for the estimates, getting the estimates to all the customers. Basically, all the office stuff, and I'd go in the field, make sure the guys were doing what they're supposed to do, and meeting the customer's expectations of what I was promised them. All that stuff. So that's what I was doing there.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And I would imagine that at that point you weren't doing any of the actual service calls, right? You weren't going into the field doing the plumbing, changing out toilets, running pipe.
At times I was, yeah. At times it was just we'd get so busy and have so much. We just didn't have the actual manpower to keep up with it. So I'd end up jumping in the field and doing that too.
Damn, well that's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have for sure.
Yeah, it
And
was.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you learned a lot there. But you already owned your own company beforehand, so you kind of already knew what it was like to be responsible for everything as far as bringing in the jobs, fulfilling those jobs, doing the marketing, doing scheduling, putting in bids if you were doing commercial work. So, what's the number one thing that you learned from that experience?
I would say don't put um, don't put profit over pride in your work. Because if you have pride in what you do, it'll show. If you do a good job for the customer, even if it costs you a little extra, the customers appreciate that, and that's repeat business, and they'll keep calling you back and keep calling you back. If they, if you show you care that much about your reputation based on what you're putting in, then you'll get repeat business. I've seen many times from many different people where they're like, I don't care how it looks, just get it in as fast as possible and make as much money as possible. Get in, get out. Yeah, okay, to a certain degree, yes, but when it looks like an 8-year-old child did it, you're not really giving the customer the professionalism that you promised them, that your license says you have. And they're not going to call you back, especially when problems come up and you have to go back and fix something. How much money are you making then when you have to go back and fix something that's wrong just because you wanted to be fast and make a quick buck? So I would say don't put profit over the pride in what you do. That's one thing I definitely learned. Make sure
Pride
have
over
pride in your
profit.
work. Have
Dude, I
pride in your
love
work,
that.
and
I
then
love
everything else
that.
will come. The profit comes because then you learn how to price it, so you can build your pride into that, and then people are willing to pay the extra for it. You know,
So build your pride into the quote, but not the work. I like that. I like that a lot. And so, okay, so now we're sitting, we're there's the end of that employment period there where you were kind of an intrapreneur. You were running the plumbing division of an HVAC company. And then what sparked tap plumbing, and what was the beginning like? Because you had already run a business. So what did you have in your mind? What did you know that you had to avoid to be able to succeed and keep this thing running?
I honestly had no real game plan except knowing that I needed to make it work. Um,
Oof.
I kind of was thrown into it because it kind of ended. It didn't end well, but it ended abruptly, and I didn't have a lot of options. Um, so I looked at my wife and said, "Well, we have to make a choice. I'm either going to go work for somebody else. I'm going to suck it up and go back in the union, see if I can get back in and pay whatever fees or fines I have for leaving, or we can start another company." So she said, "Let's just start another company." I said, "Okay, let's see what we got to do to make it happen again. Let's see where we're at financially, what kind of money, what do we need for vehicles?" Because I didn't have a work truck anymore, so I had to get a new work truck, and it was there's a lot. So we did have some, I had some money banked, so we were able to. That's another thing. Don't just dive into anything without having some financial backing of some kind. I don't mean like creditors or a financial backer per se. I mean have some money saved up that you could live off of, because that's going to be that's key. And you're gonna need some money if you don't have. I mean, usually if you're in the industry, you're going to have tools that you're going to buy anyway. But you're going to have some big ticket items when you own your own business that you're going to have to buy. So you have to make sure you have some money set aside if you're going to do that. But yeah, so we decided to open tap plumbing and heating. My wife came up with the name because at that point I didn't care what we called ourselves. I'm like, whatever, you choose the name. I don't care. She goes, what about tap? I'm like, I like it. Let's go. So we went registered the
Man, and you
company.
mentioned also that your wife is, you mentioned that you and your wife started it together. So, yes, I know that you're going to be doing all the service calls. I know you're going to be the one that's doing the physical work. So, how do you and your wife work together? What's the dynamic like as far as what does she handle in the business? What do you handle? How does that look?
Yeah, so initially she was a dental assistant, which was also a big help at the time. So she'd worked as a dental assistant, And she did that part-time, and then she would work another part-time just doing bookkeeping, taking care of all the bookkeeping. That was it. That's what I did everything else. And then it just got to a point where it was just so busy, she wasn't keeping up with the bookkeeping. And she said, we're this busy. Why not just quit and work for you full time? I said, yeah, let's do it. So about a year into it, she quit and she worked for me full time, just doing the bookkeeping, trying to keep on top of it. And flash forward another year, I'm finding myself not getting any work done and getting home late because I'm on the phone all day, taking phone calls from people, customers wanting estimates, customers needing service calls, scheduling stuff with people, forgetting I have to call people back. I'm missing calls because I get so busy with trying to hurry up and get jobs done that I forget. So at that point, she says, well, why don't I take all the phone calls? Why don't we change the phone number on everything so when people call, they don't call your cell phone. They call an office number that's attached to my phone, and then I'll answer it, and then I'll do all your scheduling. I was a little hesitant at first to give that up, but I'm like, okay, let's try it. And we tried it, and it was the best decision we made. So now she gets all the service calls, and then she schedules all the service calls for me. And then when I'm doing my remodel projects, I schedule those, and we work together to make sure that there's no like overlap, because there used to be an overlap a lot of times where I would schedule something for a remodel project to finish, but she had like a whole day plan of service calls, and I'm like, all right, crap, we gotta tighten this up. How are we gonna tighten this up? Because she would do everything in a book, write it down in a planner, in a scheduler, and I didn't have access to that till I got home. But by the time I got home, I'm so tired I forgot to write it down. I just know I have to do it.
Oof, right.
So we started running into some issues with scheduling there, but we ended up tightening that up. We started using a software, a scheduling software, so I could see it on my phone or my tablet, and then she has it obviously in her office here at home. And so anytime there's a change made, it's reflected. So we both know what's going on now. So it works pretty seamlessly now.
So that's the beauty of technology now, especially in home services. And what software do you guys use for that?
We use a company called Tradify.
Trade defined. And what's it like? What type of features? Because does it do everything? It does scheduling, booking,
Yeah, Tradify. They do.
invoicing, quotes.
Yeah. So they do scheduling was a big draw for me. So we could for this aspect, but you can invoicing, estimating, job tracking. Um, it's very interactive with the customers as well. Once you schedule a job, it has a customer's address on it, and you can hit a button on this says navigate, and it'll give you directions on whatever mapping device you use. I use iMaps on my phone. It works with Google Maps. It'll integrate whatever it is, and it'll give you directions right to the homeowner's place. It has a feature where you tap on message the customer, and it'll give them an ETA when you're going to be there and who's going to show up.
That's cool.
So there's a lot of different things, and you can take credit card payments on it. You can do all kinds of things. If you want to track what a job
That's
costs,
awesome.
you could break it down. It'll do job tracking for you and cost job. It tell you if you made money or not.
Man, that's awesome. I'm a huge fan. And like I said, like this is something that I push all of my clients to. It's like use some sort of software, right? Like there's so many options out there, and it might be tough to find one because everybody's advertising nowadays. But when you find something good, like it saves so much time. Like you said, your wife was doing the scheduling, and you didn't get access to that physical piece of paper until you got home. So like, how are you supposed to be keeping things in mind while you're in the field, right? But if you have an app and you have all the information in there, it makes things so much easier. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of that.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and I was kind of resistant to it just because I was like, oh, I'm just one guy. What do I need that for? But I found out it was pretty good, pretty good. So definitely definitely helpful. And it does. Another thing that's great too is my apprentice. I schedule him for jobs, and he sees it, and he keeps track of his time too. So it has a timesheet option, so he can start his time, end it, and then when I want to report his time to our payroll company, I just look it up and I just report his time straight to him. It's
Yeah, that
fantastic.
is so much easier. Yeah,
Awesome.
instead of texting them, how many hours did you work this week or last week? Yeah, I can
Yep.
imagine that saves a lot of time too. And also, maybe when you expand into more employees, potentially, hey, listen, this is part of onboarding. Download this app, create your account, create your password. These are your jobs. This is what you have to do. This is where you submit your time. So, like, I can imagine it makes things so much more automated too.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of it'll streamline it if I ever put another licensed guy on payroll.
For sure, absolutely. And what do you think about? Because I don't know if you were like this yourself or not, but there's a lot of specific especially plumbers. I find plumbers and roofers, they're kind of hesitant with technology, right? They don't really give in too much. They're like, oh, they're more old school pen and paper. What would you say to those guys? Do you think that they should embrace technology, embrace more marketing, take on more automations? What do you think about all that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they have employees, it's a time saver. Um, as I said, I was resistant to it until I started using it. I started using it. Yeah, it takes a little getting used to it. Probably took me a couple of weeks to kind of get used to it and get my feet wet with it. But after that, it's fantastic. I don't know how, honestly, I don't know how to run my business without it right now. If not this one, a different, if not this one, a different one. It's I would recommend it to anybody, even if not the one, even if it's not the one I use, just whatever works for them. Because it's like anything. It's like a relationship. It's got to be a good fit for you. So maybe others that maybe the one I use isn't a good fit for them, but there's like, as you said, there's like five others that they could try.
Exactly. Yeah. But the worst decision would be to look at those five and know that they exist and not give it a shot because you're afraid or you want to keep things simple when it could help you drastically in your
Yeah,
business.
yeah. And the other thing is too is the expense. Everyone thinks these things are really expensive. It's actually not that bad. I think it's like $35 a month per user or something to that effect. I forget, but it's
Mhm.
not that much money.
At all. I mean, like, and the way that I try to picture things in my mind is like, okay, how much time is this saving you, right? So you're paying $35 per month and it's taking care of all of your HR, it's taking care of all of your invoicing, it's taking care of all of your time tracking. So all those things alone could have somebody that you have in your business tracking those things, right? You could have somebody working in HR. You could have somebody working on the billing, sending out invoices, but then you would have to pay them a salary per month. Instead of paying all these different people, you can just purchase one piece of software that does all of that. And now it's $35 a month. And it's per month. That's the cool thing too. It's not like you're paying a huge amount of money up front. It's monthly, meaning that if you want to cancel it, then you can cancel it.
Cancel it. Yeah, I just threw that number out there. I don't. I honestly forgot how much it costs.
I'm sure it's around there though. That's
Yeah,
usually the range that
seems
most
it seems
platforms are.
average. It's in that ballpark.
Yep, and let's say let's exaggerate it a little bit. Let's say that it was $300 a month, right? Even that is still a bargain in my opinion, because again, you would be paying somebody $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month to handle those specific roles. You don't have that person. You just have that simple application, that piece of software. So it saves a lot of time and it works.
Yeah, don't give these guys any ideas. $35 a month is comfortable.
Hey guys, this has a patent. This is tap plumbing here, and nobody else can do it. No, I'm just kidding. But man, Travis, so you mentioned that it's just you and your wife right now. You guys are the dream team. You guys are the only two that are working in the business, and your apprentice. Do you have any? Are you looking to scale coming up in the future? Are you looking to hire more guys? Are you looking to grow the business? What's the landscape looking like for you?
So when I first started tap plumbing, I had a friend of mine say, "Travis, stay small and keep it all." I said,
Hmm.
"That's good advice. I like that." I've talked to a lot of guys who have massive crews. You know, 20 plus guys, 60 guys, and like Travis, if I had to do it all over again, I would just I'd stay small. I'd have a one person outfit, maybe two, three guys max work for me that I could, three really good guys that I could rely on work for me, and that's it. I would not go bigger than that. Not worth the money, not worth the stress, not worth the headache. Just if I could do it all over again, I would. So all the advice I have received from people who have larger companies is don't go big. Stay
Hmm.
small. Stay small. If you go big, so that's my plan. One or two guys in the future, possibly I could see, especially the older I get. Um, but I don't think I'm not looking to get. I'm not looking to get big. Some guys are looking to build an empire. I'm not. I'm not that guy. I'm not looking to build an empire. I'm looking to pay my bills, feed my family, and go on one or two vacations a year, and I'm happy.
Gotcha. And I respect the fact that you know yourself. You know what you want, right? Um, so how would you describe those guys that have those crews, right? I mean, yes, more money, more problems, but and more money, more stress. But those guys probably have more financial gain, right? But at the end of it, do they keep, as far as profit, a bigger percentage than what you keep?
Well,
Or would
yeah.
you say you have more ability to gain
I think
because you
it's
have
all
so much
relative.
control?
I think it's all relative. These guys are doing bigger jobs or more of them, so their company's generating more. They're bringing in, so their bottom line is going to be higher than mine. So their profit is going to be higher than mine because they're bringing in larger dollar amounts than I could ever hope to get being just me.
Hmm.
So I think it's relative. So let's say, just throwing numbers out there. Let's say at the end of the day, on top of my pay, my what I cut myself as a paycheck, if a job makes 30%, and let's say they're doing the same thing, but their 30% is on a much larger dollar amount. You see, so it's all relative. It's all what you want to go for. Um, it's all how you want to structure your business. I just know that for me, I'm content where I'm at.
Gotcha. And you're absolutely correct. Yeah, a higher number on the top line will I lead to a higher number on the bottom line too, as far as profit. That's 100% accurate. And what are some tips that you would give to some newer plumbers that are coming into the industry, whether they're just now getting their license? What advice would you give to them so they can speed up the process of getting the license, becoming the best plumber they can be, maybe even starting their own business like you did?
I would say just don't be in it just for a paycheck. Don't be a slug. Don't just kind of go through the paces. Um, like, for example, during my apprenticeship, when I was in the union for my apprenticeship. Yeah, I did apprenticeship work. I did all the core drilling. I did the coffee orders. I ran for material. I drilled. I did all the dirty work. Nobody else wanted to do that. It was just menial tasks. But once you get those done, get them done as fast as you can. So that way there's nothing left for them to do than to give you a job, you know, piping, putting stuff together. If you really want to learn, then learn, but you have to put yourself out there for it. You can't just expect that they're going to want to do it for you and say, all right, you're second year apprentice. Why don't you go put pipe together? They're not going to just, a lot, especially these bigger companies, they're not going to say that. They're going to hang on to you and beat you up and use you for as long as they can. And if you don't learn anything, that's not their fault. That's yours. So if you want to learn something, take the initiative. Show that you want to learn. Push through all the menial tasks so there's nothing left but learning how to actually do the trade you're in it for. Um, that's what I would say. Just, if you want it, you got to go get it.
I love that. If you want it, you have to go get it, dude. I love that. And now, what's a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's about, let's say they're about 30 years old, or maybe they're like 25 years old. They have their own plumbing company. They're a one man show just like you. What advice would you give them to set them down the right path so they can be able to, let's say they want to grow their business eventually. They want to be repeatable. They want to be as optimized as possible, make as much money as possible. What advice would you give to those guys?
That's a wonderful question. I'd have to think about that one for a minute.
No problem. Take your time. Take your time, Travis.
Yeah, let me think about that one. I mean, there's I guess definitely know where you want to go. If you want to get bigger and you want to have a multi-level crew, then have a game plan. Say this is where I want to be in this amount of time, and then figure out what you need to do to get there. If that's hire more guys, if it's, I don't know, whatever it is, you have to know what you're getting into. So you have to count your costs, right? So if you have a guy and you want to hire another person, you have to make sure that your business generates enough money to have at least 2 months worth of that guy's pay stashed away in savings. So that way that person gets that paycheck, because it'll take a while for them to kind of generate that back, so you see the benefit of having that other employee. And then depending on where you are with the business, if you're doing new construction, maybe you don't have to worry about it as much. But if you're doing service, you're going to have to put this person in a van. Another van, more maintenance, registration, taxes, insurance. You have all these other expenses that come along with having an employee. Your workers' comp now goes up because you have another employee. You may have to have health insurance for them if you want to keep them, because it's very competitive out there. There's not a lot of tradespeople. So if you want them, you have to entice them with something, and benefits is that. So you have to make sure you have money for some kind of benefits package to entice them to come and stay with you. And they're probably going to want top dollar. So as I said, make sure you have enough stashed away to take care of them until they start generating that revenue and you get a return on that investment you're putting into them.
Those are all some golden nuggets right there. Those are all very very helpful. And have you found that retaining employees is a bit harder? I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if you had a different apprentice before you had that one, but how
I did.
difficult is it to retain employees in plumbing?
Well, I did have an apprentice before, and I'd probably still have her if she didn't get sick, but she got sick and her doctor said you can't do anything in the trades. So she was out.
Oh wow.
So finding another apprentice, I was fortunate enough to find the one I have. I mean, he's a hard worker, but retaining is tough. Because let's face it, everyone's in it for the money, right? So you if you're going to work and you're going to do this, you want to make as much as you can so you can have a better life and provide for your family, all the stuff. Eventually get a house. And right now, with such a low pool to choose from as far as employees versus employers, even first-year apprentices who know absolutely nothing are getting starting pay in these larger companies in the low to mid-20s an hour. So on average, for these large plumbing companies that are doing these large commercial projects, first-year apprentices are starting at like 22, 23, up to $25 an hour, and they know absolutely nothing just to run and get coffee and material. Now, my apprentice brought that to my attention one time. He goes, "Hey, this kid in my class is making $22 an hour. He just started with this." He named some big company. I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course he is. They have multi-million-dollar projects that they work on. I can't compete with that." I said, "I understand if you want to go, not a problem. You want to go, it's fine. You'll probably learn more on the commercial end of things, and you'll get a better feel for how plumbing works behind the scenes and behind the walls and all that stuff if you go work for them." I said, "But you have to weigh the benefits, the pros and cons of doing that." I said, "With me, when you work with me, it's one-on-one. I'm teaching you directly. You're learning directly from me. I like to think of myself as fairly easygoing, and we like to have fun on a job." I said, "So I may not be able to get to where their numbers are, but give me an opportunity. You have to see where you want to be, what you want to do. If you want to do commercial stuff and you want to make the big dollars, I don't blame you. I'm not going to fault you for it. Will I kind of be upset, not mad upset, but just like, oh man, he didn't want to stay with me. Of course, because finding good employees is tough." I said, "But I get it. I completely would understand if you wanted to leave." So yeah, I mean, there is that level of trying to retain employees. That's kind of a balancing act. It's tough, but fortunately, he asked me for quite a significant raise after he graduates, and we came to a mutually beneficial agreement on how much of a raise he's going to get, and he's worth it. He's a good kid. He's worth it. So, but yeah, definitely difficult to retain help in this market. Never mind find it. That's why I don't. I tell my wife all the time. We could buy another van and put a licensed guy in it, and we would still be busy. The problem is, who in the world am I going to get? Because there's the guys who are good are happy where they are because their employers make sure they're happy. They give them whatever they want. They give them the trucks. They give them the gas cards. They give them the top dollar pay, all the benefits. They give them everything. The only guys that are left over are the guys who can't keep a job but still want the top dollar. It's like, what's the point if I got to go back and fix their mistakes anyway, or I have customers complaining about them and I got to backpedal, and now that's my reputation on the line. I can't compete with these bigger companies who could offer this kind of money right now. So yeah, finding employees is hard. So that's why I'm kind of at the mindset right now where if I just keep it me and my apprentice for now, if he wants to stay with me till he gets his license, that's fine. I'll put him in the truck. He can continue working with me, and then we'll be able to hire apprentice. I'll have 2 apprentices. I can hire one for me and one for him.
Oh yeah, that's the benefit of it. Yeah.
But as I said, we'll see how that goes in the future. But at the moment, I'm not really in the market for hiring anybody other than my apprentice.
Gotcha. And let's say it's a perfect world. Let's say that tomorrow you wake up and you're at a job site and you see another plumbing van across the street from one of your job sites, and guy walks up to you like, "Hey, listen, man, what's your name? I'm Miguel. I don't know. And I'm a license. I have a license here in Connecticut. I'm really good at what I do." You do some research on him. You find out that he's actually good, and he wants to work for you for top dollar. Would you pay him top dollar? Have him come work for you? Help scale the business if you know that his work is quality?
I'm not going to say no, but I would have to think about it. I'd have to think about it, research it, and make sure that I could afford to put him on. For sure. I wouldn't just jump into it. I'd want to, as I said, for anyone who needs an employee, you got to make sure you want to have at least 2 months worth of their payroll saved up. So I would want to make sure I have all my ducks in a row before just saying, "Oh yeah, come work for me. I'll hire you." And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, money starts getting funny. Van craps out. I got to buy 2 new vans instead of one. It's like you gotta make sure the money's there and it makes sense financially.
Oof, that's the number one thing. And I like your mindset around that, right? Most people will probably say, yes, hell yeah, I'll hire him right now. Here's your salary. I'll pay you 3 months bonus. But
Yeah.
it's good to think about the back end of it, right? Do you have enough to afford for a couple of months if things, slow down, or if other parts of the business start faulting and the money has to go that way and you can't pay the employee. So I like your mindset around that.
Yeah, here's an example. There's about a year into tap plumbing, I was at my supply house, and there's this guy came in out of the blue. Huge van. It's like what I got now, which I didn't buy till my till my second year. Big huge van. And I was like, "Who is this guy?" He goes, "Hey, he just opened up shop." He just opened up. He's got a van that big already. Guy took out a loan, had no money, took out a loan for the van, hired an apprentice right off the jump, and then just started doing all this stuff. Business didn't. Let me see. A few months later, I see him at the supply house again. He goes, "Hey, you look like you know what you're doing. Do you want a job? Come work for me. Close up your company. Come work for me." I gave him one good look. Said, "No, that's all right. I'm happy where I'm at. I appreciate the offer, though. I really do." He goes, "All right. Hey, we're going places." The company didn't even last a year. And he's folded up.
Wow. Do you
And
know what exactly caused his downfall?
I don't, but if I had to guess, I would say he started his business wrong. He started his business in debt, which you don't want to do. You don't want to start your business by being in debt with the business. So you don't want to have buy everything on credit your first year. You don't want to just buy this brand new van that you have to make monthly payments on and you have nothing to back it up with as far as work. You don't want to have to, buy all these tools on a credit card and now you have tens of thousands of dollars on a credit card that now you have to pay back. So if I had to guess, I'd say he just got financially, he just started off wrong.
Wow. Wow. And did you feel
That's just a
insulted
guess
by
based
that,
on
by
what I
him?
saw. That's just a guess based on what I saw, and I've never seen. I don't even know where he is anymore. I don't even see him around.
Gotcha. And did you feel offended when he told you to close up shop or and come work for me, or did you take it as a compliment, like, oh, this guy thinks I'm good?
Neither. I wasn't offended, and I didn't take it as a compliment. I just took it as this guy was some arrogant blowhard that thought he was going places, and I wanted no part of it. I was like,
Man,
man,
and
I'm all right
and
now.
one last thing here then. So, what would you say is the right way to start your business, right? I mean, that person that you mentioned, he started off kind of wrong, bought a brand new truck before any money was coming in, hired an apprentice probably before he had enough work to make that apprentice pay off, right? Or be beneficial. So, what's the right way to start? What would you say is the right way to do things?
So definitely make sure that you have the clientele to back it up. That's another thing I wanted to make sure that I had a customer base that I could kind of rely on before I started my business. So I made sure I had the remodeling contractors lined up. I made sure that I had service companies that were willing to do business with me. I made sure that friends and family knew that, hey, listen, I'm starting my business back up. So if you know of anybody, word of mouth stuff, just let everybody know. And the moment I decided to start my business, I got a phone call that same day saying, "Hey, Travis, I'm remodeling. I got some work to do. Are you willing to come give me a price?" And from that moment forward, it has just been nonstop work. I have had the slowest period I've had, I think, was this past March. And by slow, it means I actually did like 40-hour work weeks. I was home at like 4:30 in the afternoon instead of 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So it's just it's been good, but yeah, just make sure you have the clientele to back it up. I know a lot of guys they'll work for somebody and then they'll moonlight or they'll do side work afterwards, and then that's how they build up their clientele is by doing side work before they just go ahead and jump into their own business. Um, that's how I started the first time around. When I was working in a union, I would do side work at night, and then I built a steady customer base who was like, "Hey, why don't you just do this full time?" And eventually, I took them up on it. So
Let's go. I
that's
like
one way.
that.
Make sure you have the work, because if you open a company and then you're sitting on your hands for a month or two, whatever money you have saved up is going to go real fast. So make sure you have the market. You have the you know I probably said this 100 times already in this one thought, but make sure you have the customer base to generate the money that you need to keep the business going, I guess.
Gotcha. And it sounds like you also have a lot of connections with contractors and home improvement guys. So how did you spark those connections? How do you meet those guys?
um a lot of it is word of mouth. Others are friends of mine who work for contractors who got my foot in the door. Um, things like that. Just if you're in the trade long enough, you meet people and you get to know and make these connections. And if you tell them, hey, listen, are you in the market for another plumber or electrician or whatever? I can you let me price a job for you? And that's how you get your foot in the door. Once they see your quality of work meets up to their expectations and that you do know what you're doing, a lot of times they'll, especially if they're busy and they have a ton of jobs where they can have more than one plumber or electrician that works for them, they can kind of spread the load and they can then in turn take on more work and generate more income for themselves. So it's mutually beneficial.
Mutually beneficial. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Travis, if somebody, let's say that we have a listener from Connecticut and they wanted to do some work, right? They needed some work in their house, or if they are a contractor and they need a plumber on their team that they can rely on or delegate work to, how can they reach you?
Well, they can go on the Better Business Bureau website. They go on there. There's a link. They can request a quote. They can call the office number. They can go to my website. They can request one directly from my website. They can go to my Instagram page, and they could, hit me in the DMs.
Gotcha. Cool. And are you comfortable with sharing your website and your phone number on the podcast, or?
Yeah. My website is www.tapplumbing.net. And the office number is 860-540-6724.
Perfect. Awesome. That is great right there. And Travis, are there any closing thoughts that you have, like any last pieces of advice before we go ahead and end this podcast and get started with processing this thing?
Nothing crazy. Just if whatever trade you decide you're going to do, whether it's a trade or if it's not a trade, say it's whatever you'd wanted to do for a career. If that's what you want to do, then show your employer that you're worth the investment he's putting into you. It's an employee-employee relationship is a two-way street. The employer is investing a lot of time and money into you. So make sure he sees a return of that investment in you, and he'll keep you going, and he'll give you more, and he'll train you more. That's what I tell my apprentice all the time. You're here, so you're going to do apprentice work. No two ways about it. You're here to make my life on the job site easier. But once all of that is done, if you really want to learn this trade, I'll teach you, and I'll put your hand. I'll put tools in your hand, put pipe in your hand, and you can just run with it. I've let him. We've done additions, and he's done all the water piping. So just put some effort into it. Don't just be there and expect your boss to just keep paying you even though you know nothing. Because at a certain point, they're going to say, you've made no progress. You're doing absolutely nothing. What do I need you for? I need someone who's going to progress. So put your all into it. If this is what you want to do, whatever the career path you choose to take is, then put your all into it. Make it worth your employer to keep you and to pay you more. Because I'm not going to pay someone more to do the exact same thing he's been doing, but I'll pay him more if he puts a little more into it. If that makes sense.
I agree with you 1,000%. If you want to get paid more, you have to provide more value or be worth more.
Yep.
100%. 100%.
And if you're looking to start your business, just make sure you got a game plan. Don't just jump into it. I also had a friend who just decided one day he was just going to jump into it. And literally 3 months later, he fell out of it. So have a game plan. Make sure you know what you're doing, where you want to go with your company, and then implement it. If that means waiting before you open your company, not a big deal. Keep doing what you're doing and wait until you get to that point. And when you get to that point, then do it. But don't just jump into it without a game plan.
Don't jump into it blindly. Love that piece of advice there as well. And Travis, I really, really appreciate your time, man. And everybody listening to this, definitely go and follow Travis on Instagram, Tap Plumbing and Heating. If you guys live in the area or if you're a contractor, go to his website, man. This guy does amazing work. You guys should see his content on Instagram and all his other social media platforms. He's putting out amazing things. You guys will find a lot of benefit of it. Tapplumbing.net, Tap Plumbing and Heating on Instagram. Travis, I appreciate your time. Audience, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Take care, guys. Peace.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.